How many guesses do they get? 10. Oh. 10 no's. Okay. And it's Christmas time, so that's an extra no. Because there's no L. But anyway. Maybe. But anyway.
I get it.
So the Agnew Pestock blend is here to participate in What's My Line? And I believe, can you all see that? I'm not sure if it's incredibly legible. Did you see what it is? How hard is it going to be?
What to say?
Yes, if you think you read it, what does it say?
Well, see, tell you what, Pastor's not here to give you guys the answer, so we'll see how it goes. Well, she'll be watching this afternoon. I'm turning my phone off. But, all right, what's a guess?
Okay, I don't know. I'm feeling kind of confident because I won some movie tickets on the radio this week from guessing something. So,
Confident they can go to the movies. Okay.
okay. So, does this person care for children in any capacity?
No.
Okay.
Is this still a profession?
Is it a what?
Still,
It is, isn't it?
does this person ride an animal?
In history, yeah, well, and sometimes now even, yes.
Okay.
Yes, sometimes now.
Does this person's job involve traveling a lot?
Yes,
Okay.
very much.
Does this person work for the king?
Yes. Be it, I'll amend, its survey says ruler/king, yes.
Okay.
Got my Family Feud in there.
I scared if I can't think of anything.
No, go ahead.
You're doing great, Carter.
Just pass it on if he wants to.
Do people look up to this person?
Yes, very much so. Very much so.
Does this person have an important parent?
No. I mean, no, not as a rule.
Is this person considered on the higher end of intelligence?
Not necessarily. Not necessarily.
Okay.
Is this person considered godly?
Well, not as a profession, but many of them are. Yeah.
Okay.
Keep going, that was it.
Okay.
Was that a no or yes?
That was a no. That was a no.
Oh, that was no?
Keep going, buddy. You got this.
Yeah, you're doing great.
Does this profession involve a certain gender?
No.
Okay.
Although at that, actually, no, I'm going to amend that. At that time, it was a yes. Nowadays, it's a no. It's amended.
He is the current ruler. He said so.
So at the time, yes.
Okay.
Yes, very much so.
Can this person does this person have to be young?
Starting out, yes.
Okay.
You can't start it at my age.
Okay.
Survey says I know what I'm talking about.
Does this person work with the king?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. I don't know this game. I don't know. I'm doing it right.
Does this person fight?
Yes. Yes.
Is it a knight?
It's a great word, but it's the wrong word. Can you amend it?
Soldier. Is this person a soldier?
Yes. Good job. don't know. Steve Harvey would have done it about that well, right? And if it was a beauty contest, maybe worse. If you'll stand for the reading of the word, we're going to be in Matthew chapter 1, or chapter 2, excuse me. Matthew chapter 2, beginning with verse 13. When they had gone, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream. "Get up," he said. "Take the child and his mother and escape to Egypt. Stay there until I tell you, for Herod is going to search for the child to kill him." So he got up, took the child and his mother during the night, and left for Egypt, where he stayed until the death of Herod. And so was fulfilled what the Lord had said through the prophet, "Out of Egypt I called my son." When Herod realized that he had been outwitted by the Magi, he was furious, and he gave orders to kill all the boys in Bethlehem and its vicinity who were 2 years old and under, in accordance with the time he had learned from the Magi. Then what was said throughout the prophet Jeremiah was fulfilled. "A voice is heard in Ramah, weeping in great mourning, Rachel weeping for her children and refusing to be comforted because they are no more." This is the word of the Lord. You may be seated. Now you'll notice in this that the word soldier doesn't appear. We don't know who they were exactly. And I'll be honest, if I was one of those soldiers, I wouldn't want my name out there either. Because one of the most horrific things we can think of is vulnerable, innocent children being murdered. And Herod was a despicable man, we know that. So I have no doubt these men, which, absolutely right, it would have been men at the time, he would have had no problem if they had said, "No, this is wrong," with killing them first to make them as an example and sending the next group. One of the nice things we have about our country is there's a list of rules that any soldier has in a little manual they're trained on. If there is an objectionable order that is clearly wrong, that violates the conventions but is morally wrong, you have a right to go to your officer and say, "I will not do this, and I will put this up to chain." Now, realistically, you're still going to be scared, because especially during wartime, you can still be shot if they disagree with you. But they didn't have that in any way, form, or sense in the time of Jesus. Now, who were the soldiers at that time? There were the palace guards. There were the Hebrew militias, if you will. And interestingly, Herod, like Pastor had said last week, was really in close with the Caesar, both Augustus, who was Caesar right then, and he was good buds with Mark Antony before that. And so he had great political connections. And so they'd given him gifts of 3 different troops of foreign soldiers that were Roman in basis, but not Roman soldiers. They were from near France, Germany, Switzerland area. There was some near the Bavarian area of Germany, and then there was a third group that was from Bulgaria area. So these were European, very Celtic, which does not mean they were tall and played basketball. It means that their worship was Celtic worship. And they likely were an elite group that protected Herod. And so a lot of people think maybe they were the people who were sent to do this. Now, Bethlehem isn't very far away from Jerusalem, just a few miles. And when they got this order, it would have been obviously after Jesus and Joseph and Mary had gone to Egypt, which was well provided for by the wise men. God had sent them with what 3 things? Gold, frankincense, and myrrh, right. Perfect. And all three of those are, the frankincense and myrrh are expensive, so they could have sold it. Gold they could have just used. And they could have gone down for a few years into Egypt based on that. A young couple with a new baby usually can't move out of state, much less out of country, but what they were provided for by God. These soldiers were given an order to go into a small village. People guess at how many kids this would have been, but I'll be honest, one child that's killed this way is horrific. And I had this class I took a few times, systematic theology. That was more my paying attention and not napping in class than it was my intelligence, although they both contributed. Systematic theology is a hard class, yeah. Someone's shaking their head, but I don't want to owe him $1, so I'm not going to say. But one of the things Larry Fine actually said in a class, and I remembered this, and it forms a part of my central theology on how I try to do things. In Revelation, the book of Revelation, in chapter 20, verse 11, it says, "Then I saw a great white throne, and him who was seated on it. The earth and the heavens fled from his presence, and there was no place for them. And I saw the dead, great and small, standing before the throne, and the books were opened. Another book was opened, which is the book of life. The dead were judged according to what they had done, as recorded in the books. The sea gave up the dead that were in it, and the death and Hades gave up the dead that were in them, and each person was judged according to what they had done." Now there's a little grace in a minute, but we'll get there. "Then death and Hades were thrown into the lake of fire. The lake of fire is in the second death. Anyone whose name was not found written in the book of life was thrown into the lake of fire." Great Christmas message, right? But that's why Jesus came. See, because what these soldiers did were horrible, and it's normal to look at them as monsters and to look at Herod as a monster. But the thing that Larry Fine said that has always caused me pause and to think, like when Osama bin Laden was killed, I wasn't celebrating. Not that I thought it was bad that he died, because I thought he was doing a lot of rough stuff, you know. And when Hitler, before my time, I'll qualify that, but when Hitler killed himself, on one side it was really good because then Germany could start to heal. On the other side, I thought about Hitler. Someday he's going to come up for this great throne. And the way Larry Fine explains it, and it's been 30 years, so he could come up to you after he sees this and say, "That's not how I said it," but he's probably wrong. But the way I remember it was we're all going to be there together on that day. Everything we've done, every motive we've had, every slight thing that we excused ourselves, and every big thing we've condemned ourselves is going to be lifted out and shown in that moment. And we're going to review each other's lives strip by strip by strip, and we get stripped down to the very basic of who we are. And I think that's going to be healing, because we're going to really truly understand each other for the first time. I mean, we love each other right now, and that's why God calls the church together, to be together, is to learn to love each other despite my frailties and weaknesses. But on that day, you guys are going to be able to see me for the rotten scoundrel I really am. And I'm going to see you for the rotten scoundrel you really are. And we're going to be stripped away from all that. And I think that's a part of the healing that has to happen in heaven. Now, this is all me. This is not necessarily defendable except for what I just read. So if you see it a different way, talk to Larry Fine. He was the one that got it wrong. But I believe that. And so when I think of Osama bin Laden, it's like I'm going to have to sit there and watch his whole life get stripped down to the very basics. And it's going to hurt, not necessarily because I feel bad for him, but because I know what's going to happen for me. And yet, at that same time, here's this baby that the soldiers are trying to kill, that Herod's trying to kill. And it's the one way that we get saved on that day. When we get stripped down to nothing, we see what pitiful people we are. Christ is going to say, but you're in my book. It's okay. There's going to be a grace in that goes beyond anything you and I have ever done. And I wonder, some of these soldiers would surely have still been in Jerusalem at the time of Jesus, because Carter was absolutely right. They were young at this time, likely, at least some of them. And, got to be careful. Tina only has $2. But that said, they would likely have been there when Jesus was on the cross. And I wonder how many of these people were following Jesus. How many of these people in Herod's temple? How many of these people are in Herod's courtroom? How many people that had gone into powerful positions? They were in the Sanhedrin. Not much of anything at the time. Now, if it was the Celtics, the Boston Celtics, they would have likely not been there anymore. But there were people there who were complicit in some way. And if they had accepted Jesus into their heart, and they're looking at Jesus, the person they tried to kill, and the moment, I would love to have been there the moment they figured out, oh, this is the baby that we tried to kill. And what do they do with that? I mean, what do we do with that when God presses upon our heart something that we're going to be redeemed for, that God's already given us the grace? But how hard is it to forgive ourselves and to love other people who've done the same things we have? Because I think one of my theories is that the things that drive me the most crazy about other people are usually the things that are my weakest spots, the places I'm most vulnerable. It reminds me so much of how imperfect I am. Because, one of the things I've found out about myself is I want to be perfect. I really, really want to be perfect. And I've beaten my head against that wall many, many times. And it's frustrating. Because if God could just let me be perfect the rest of my life would be so smooth, right? If I never got mad at Tina for stuff that she didn't deserve to get mad at, and if I never got irritated at Justin or Maggie, we'll pay you guys later. My life would be so much easier, And I'd be such a better example for God to everybody, because I'd be perfect. It would be wonderful, wouldn't it? And this day, great day of judgment is coming someday, and I'm not so much afraid of it, because I know I'm covered in the grace of God, and I know I'm constantly working towards being closer and closer to God, but yet at the same time, I'm not really particularly looking forward to it. And there are things, quite honestly, quite plainly, there are things I still struggle sometimes to forgive myself for. Things that I have a shame about. And I'm not going to tell you guys about this now because I haven't worked through those things yet. But I have given them to God, and God's working on me. And I just wonder how these soldiers got to a point, if they did, where they forgave themselves after Jesus forgave them. Because I think of the story in Scripture where Jesus is writing on the ground and everybody wants him to condemn this adulteress. He says, sure, cast a stone. Oh, you just have to be perfect. You can't have any sin. And all of them kind of looked at him and then looked at her and then looked at each other and walked off. And the only person who's ever been perfect and ever stayed perfect said, I'm not going to condemn you either. Go and sin no more. And that's awesome. Because, that's his message. That's why he was born in a donkey trough. That's why he had to have people change his diaper. That's why he went down to Egypt where his family didn't even know the language. That's why he went to a little town of incredible unimportance named Nazareth, who they didn't even know could anything good come out of. That's why when he preached, he didn't preach in our beautiful technology with sound. He didn't wait for us for some reason. You know, because he could have been telecasting to the whole world right now, and he could have had toilet paper. Well, most of the time he could have had toilet paper. But instead he went to a humble time, to a humble town where he was persecuted. Just so he could say to you, go and sin no more. And so when we all gather on that day of judgment, the white throne, it won't be scary for us. It'll be humbling. It'll be painful, but it'll be healing. All we have to do is hold Christ into our heart and accept the fact that He alone is our way of forgiveness. That we're not ever going to be able to live perfectly. Now, God will work with us, and He'll help us, and we will grow, and we can even be perfect in intent, and God can give us an incredible sanctification where we no longer are selfish like we used to be, but we're intent on doing the right thing, and we're still going to sin as far as falling short. But Jesus doesn't care about that. I mean, He cares, but He wants us to be in His book. And He wants us to be in His heaven. And He wants us to have a new body, a new spirit. And for on that great day of judgment, I mean, if He'd have His rathers, there wouldn't be anybody cast into the lake of fire. That's why He came. God so loved the world that He gave His one and only Son, so that whoever believes in Him. And here we are at Christmas, and I know that there's presents under your tree if you have a tree up this year. And I know you went out and spent money like my wife, well, oops, like I did. I'll say I did, because I did. And we'll have a special meal that takes a lot of time. And all these things are because of our love and our appreciation to Jesus. And Jesus wants us to live that all of eternity. All we have to do is ask Him into our hearts and live by that every day. And even these soldiers, I have hope for. Now, I don't know that they found God, but in their lifetimes, I think they had it available. In our lifetimes, it's available. In your friends and your loved ones' lifetimes, and the people you hate the most on earth, it's available, and God yearns for it. So as we go throughout this season, whether you're together with people or alone, whether you're afraid of the COVID or not, love and embrace God together. Now, Pastor offered for us to do the communion, which is an excellent way